Hello, this is Birthday Resistance. I'm just making this guide for my friends to help explain some Criterion mechs and hopefully show how my group did it and also explain how you can potentially do things differently for your group depending on what your static mates prefer. So it starts out with a raid wide, pretty simple. So the boss will cast Familiar Call, which will summon a whole bunch of creatures around the arena, and then she will cast Echoed Serenade, casting 4 different creatures in a row. And so what's important is that this baby chick will do conals, so north and south of it will be safe. If the birds are east-west, the conals will shoot east-west, therefore north and south will be safe. And these pufferfish will do a defamation, so east-west will be safe. These 2 creatures are always on the cardinals, and then the crab and the seahorse are always shooting across the lanes. So in this case, it was this little chocobo chick, and then the seahorses, crabs, and pufferfish. It can be any order. It can be alternating between lines and these AoEs, or it can be multiple back-to-back. I think it can't be pufferfish and chocobo back-to-back, but you can have 2 lines in a row, or it can be a line and then one of the cardinal creatures and then a line. For my static, we put each person in their own quadrant. So the tank is at the red markers, I am in the yellow markers, our melee's in the blue markers, and our healer's in the purple markers. And so since it's chocobo, it's north-south safe first. You can use these lines here as a safe spot, but since it's the first thing, there's no AoEs going off, so it's no big deal. And then it does the second creature, which is the seahorses, which also causes a defamation to go off at the same time. And then it'll be the crabs, which the seahorses and crabs are always on opposite lanes. So since I dodged the seahorses here on this side of 2, I know that this has to be safe because the seahorse can't be in 2 places at once. So I simply dodge into the other lanes that I was dodging earlier, as you can see here. And then it's the pufferfish, which do an out, and I also have my AoE. There. So you can also use these lines for the safe spots too. And then the boss is doing 2 cleaves, and you just dodge into it. Very simple. Then the boss will cast Alluring Order, which puts a force march on everyone. And then 2 stack debuffs. We did a Snake Prio with the range DPS going north clockwise and our healer going northwest clockwise, and then the melees adjust. So they flex in between. So normally we try to keep the DPS together and the supports together, but if there's a flex, the melees would flex. And then the boss will rotate to a random cardinal. In this case, the boss rotated north, that's why nothing happened. And then she will spawn AoEs. So I can see that there was an AoE spawned at 1 and 2, but then she skips 3 and 4. So the group that goes north clockwise will go to 3, and the group that goes northeast clockwise will go to 4. One of the things we talked about post-prog was if the boss turns to, say, south, it becomes much harder to read true north for this, and it's a lot more to keep track of. And so you can have, when the boss turns, that be the new north, and then just do the mechanic based on that. And then you just dodge together on that corner is very safe, and you stack, and it's done. Next, it's Ceaseless Current. So she will spawn Exas. So we did Exa Relative, where we put our healer up here, tank here, melee DPS here, and I was in the very last corner. You can potentially do static spots if you want, but the important thing to notice is that every player is getting these green markers that will do a cross AoE in the squares that you're in. And so by putting them on a diagonal like that relative to the X's, everyone does a consistent dodge every pull, and we're all spread out. And you have to do a diagonal because the boss is doing this cleave. So I dodge the cleave while my Exa goes off, dodge into it, dodge the Exa. And each player will do a slightly different dodge, but if you do a relative Exa, it should be consistent. So next is the second alluring order. So again, you'll need to check if a melee swap needs to happen. For this one, my group setup were good. DPS stay together, support stay together, and it will spawn 4 donuts and 2 balls. You need to look for the ball that is not breaking soon. So these all activated. This one did not activate, which means that we need to go to the donuts on this side first. So same prio as before. As DPS, I'm going to 1 and supports are going to 2. Dodge the cleave while the donut happens. And then you have a bit of time to escape the ball. If the cleaves happen the other way, I found it easier to collapse onto the ball and then go through the boss. So for this one, my group actually discussed doing a different setup. Let me pull it up. Oh no, I'm having a hard time pulling it up. Okay, so this is the setup that my group wanted to do. In this case, you will put the tank north, the melee DPS here, and then the healer and the range DPS here. And so in this case, in my VOD, I'm here and the melee DPS is here, and we would swap. And then this yellow will drop a puddle. And so what's important is if you do this setup, the range need to drop their puddles in these 2 spots. And then the melees can drop in either spot, but you need to leave yourself a corner of movement. You cannot drop it here and do a straight line. It has to be a corner. And so you just have your own little safe spot. And then we'll do familiar call again. So it's going to spawn the animals. And so this one's turtle, seahorse, crab, turtle. And it's really important to remember what this is. Because it will get reprised without telling you what it is. So turtle, seahorse, which also did this cross here, crab, and then turtle. And then you're going to get 3 of these puddles and these cross deformations again. So if we go back to the picture, the range DPS will drop their crosses in this corner. And then the melees will drop it here, and that way the melees can have uptime. Because in my group strat, we did it so that everyone places consistently and then does these consistently, but of course they can't come in. And so this is the familiar call again, where it spawns them again, but she's not telling you what the order is, so it's important to remember turtle, seahorse, crab, turtle. Or it could be any combination of whatever it would be. And then of course she does this cross AoE, and then my group focused on skipping a lot. So I have to pull up an older poll. So the next mechanic is Sea Shackles. It will spawn tethers between players. I've seen it be 2 deformation tethers. I've seen it be, this one's a close tether and a far tether. So just make sure to react to whatever it is. The green tether needs to be close. The blue tether needs to remain far. And she will spawn the donuts and the balls. So in this case, the groups need to go to the balls that are not exploding and go to the donuts. So in this case, the deformation tether needs to have 1 person at 1 and 1 person at 3. And then the close tether can have both people at 3. But you're also dropping puddles, so you want to drop 3 puddles before going to the safe spot. And then dodge at 2 and 4. And that's all I really know of how this boss ends. Unfortunately, my group just focused on killing as fast as we could. Okay, and so here's the second boss. First cast is just a raid wide, pretty typical. So it'll do this near far, and it's also doing a colored effect around the boss. So if it's blue, that means that this prey marker needs to stack with 2 other people, and if it's yellow, this prey marker needs to be alone. And the reasoning being, if you have the yellow marker and other people get hit, they will get knocked to the edge of the arena. And if you're the blue marker and you're alone, you get knocked to the edge of the arena. And so with the cast bar being far, that means that the 1 is the donut and the 2 is the out. The other cast being near, where the 1 is the out and the 2 is the donut. And so there's a couple things that are important. You need to put the donut in the middle, and if it's stack, also all stack together. But also if it's out and then donut, you need to have the out be out and then do their donut. So with this, to start, she will give everyone 3 red sides and 1 open side. You will have these in pairs, so 2 open on the same side and 2 open on the other side. And we had our pairs stay grouped up. And so what's going to happen is the people that have these cleaves from the wall will also get the tether. So if you don't have a tether, you must take a tether. Or if you have a tether, your tether will get taken and you must resolve your cleave. The way to resolve this is you need the attack that's going to hit you on your open side. So with the tether, the green arrow shows you where it's going to hit. So I pick it up and it's going to hit my open spot, which is good. And then for my partner, he's going to back up so that his open spot will be resolved by his wall cleave. And so this also teaches you that when you take the tether and you have the green marker, it will fill that in for you on your side. But when you get hit by a cleave, you just get hit by a cleave. So this next cast is either Echoing Orbit or Echoing 8. My group always resolve this by stacking mid because Echoing has no spread involved, but it tells you that it's going to happen later. So we always stack mid. And then if it's orbit, we go out. And then we go back in because it makes donuts. And if it's 8, it will make a star. And you will just want to be basically between a marker because the star will just hit all of these markers as long as it's stacked well. And then she casts Waiting Wounds. Just do a 3-to-1 dodge. Pretty easy. Doing this again, so this is this yellow spread marker, and then it's far. So the yellow spread needs to be alone while the donut is mid, and then the spread will go out. Silent 8. So 8 will drop the stars, but silent means that we're also dropping these puddles. My group took them in the corners. I think that there is definitely a way to place markers so that you drop these in a square much closer to mid, but we found that we could consistently resolve this, so we never changed it. But if you have like your number markers much closer, I would advise trying to place these closer. But this is the safe spot that it makes since it hits in a star, and then you dodge that while it's casting Maw of the Wolf, which is just a behind. But it's just a gotcha mechanic. They cast this again another later. Fangs of the Underworld. The boss doesn't turn to this, so feel free to take this at the back for your melee positionals. It's always 3 hits, never increases. Raid wide. If you late mit for the repeated stack, your mits will last for this raid wide. So for this, you'll get 2 sides covered, always across from each other. And it's always in these pairs of 2 people with north-south and 2 people with east-west. And for us, we tried to make sure that everyone was on like a different cardinal of the boss, because we're going to get these small cones from the side of the boss that we need to resolve. So this is like super visually cluttery. But what's important is sometimes your cleave means you can go straight across, and sometimes your cleave means that you have to bend it. So in this case, I think we all go across. Yeah, we're all happy going just directly across. Sometimes your cleave means that you have to go left or right, and it's important for you to look at your partner, because if they need to go to a specific spot, you have to let them, and you have to adjust. But sometimes you just all go across, and that's the easy pattern. You just need to drop this in this square. The more safe space you leave for later, the better, but it's not a huge deal. Does this again. It's kind of a gotcha. This one's the spread, and it's near. So it's out, then in. And so now she will give you 2 red sides that are adjacent. Our strategy for this was to take your 2 red sides and look at that corner. Also, she does the 2 cleaves and then the Maw of the Wolf, so she does the get behind. And then what one of the members of my static advised was you look at this wall and you know that these red, if you see a red on one side, the other side, the cleave must be coming from the wall behind you. You don't need to turn your camera around. You need to keep your camera consistent or you'll confuse yourself. And so what we do is you look for your 2 cleaves and you just go to where they're not going to hit. Every time. And then for this last one, so this cleave resolves, and then you're taking this tether and she's drawing a green, and you need to look at what will be the only remaining open spot, and you need to go to where there's no cleave. So she's going to put one here, and that means my open spot will be here, so I can only take this cleave. So you also must back up into one of these outer squares. And then you just take a cardinal cleave. Sometimes it's normal for people to double up on an area. That's not a sign of like a failure. This one, same with the mid timing. If you press it late, it will last later. And so the important thing here is you're looking for this pulsing proximity that's about to happen and just dodging AoEs along the way. And then you're going to see 2 circles spawn, and you're going to need to break a tether along the line where they don't spawn. My group strategy was, if it spawns like this, we stay, we remain. But if it spawns the other way, we sprint mid, because some people will have to go way too far if you're in this corner and you need to break along this line. And the reason you need to break along this line, to go back to this chain mechanic, we had one pull where our groups were mixed, so our DPS were chained together and our supports were chained together. So we started spreading out a bit to see who got chained to who. But generally you can have supports go one way and DPS go the other, and we're hoping that it was a bug. But it could be an RNG thing, so just be prepared to react. And so it's going to cast Echoing 8, which is why you need to go to these corners, because you need to place these star AoEs so they don't hit the rocks. Because every time these rocks get hit, they take damage, and eventually they'll go away. And so I'm going to actually cut to a different pull where I resolve the mechanic to give you more views of properly doing it. So we dodge the star pattern, the rocks are safe, and then the boss will give you 1 open spot and 3 red. And so for this one, we actually looked at our open spot rather than our red spots. And so I see that I can get hit by this cleave, which means that I must be on this delta side of the arena. I cannot do either quadrant at beta. And then I look and I see this cleave. This cleave means that the other cleave is in the bottom right, so I must go around the left side of the rock, like this. And then I see my next cleave has spawned, so I can already start thinking about where I want to go. This one, actually, I have 2 safe spots here. Either one, I can dodge behind the rock and I will have my open spot. And then I go to my next safe spot, which is very close to the same. And then the last safe spot. And then the boss will do a raid wide. And this repeated stack, which this, if you mint late, it will cover into this. And then you will get the Enrage, which I do like this Enrage a lot. And you get all 4 sides. And it's a long cast bar. So that's this whole boss. Just a lot of visualizing the cleaves and showing your hole. Okay. And so here's the last boss. For all these bosses, we did a very similar marker setup. It's because they don't really need markers, but it's nice to have the visuals. Starts off with a raid wide. And the boss will jump somewhere. This mechanic has 2 patterns, one good, one bad, but the bad one is just different. We thought it was like a difficult run, but it's actually much easier. So the boss will cleave and dash, and it will continue to cleave while they dash. So in this case, this space is safe because it cleaves to the 2 side, and then it's going to cleave towards 3 sides. So all of this will be safe. And so it does a first sound effect for spawning the flame, and then it dashes, and it's off screen, and it dashes a bunch. And earlier right here, It casts Pyrelight or Emberlight. Emberlight is spreads and Pyrelight is stacks. And it always seems to do an in here. And for this one, so our strategy is you put the blue on your left and the orange on your right, and you just need to go to where there's a safe spot because it's going to be in one of the back 2 corners. And so with 2, I can see that the blue is cleaving that, while when I look at 3, 3 is not cleaving that back corner, so I know it must be there. And then it's Kindled Flame, which is pairs. The spread is Scattered Flame, so you just put one person in each corner of the square, or you just make little pairs. Fire Victory is just a cleave tank buster. Firelight 4 Long Nights, so you will see 4 different casts. It will do 2 near casts, 2 far casts, and it will also just do 4 of these fire rotations. And so what's going to happen with the fire rotations is it's just an AoE that you dodge. For the near far, the whatever it's being baited by the visual, one person needs to soak and the rest of the 3 players stack. So in this case, it's near, near, far, far. And so this one, it's stay, swap, swap. And so the reason why it's stay, swap, swap is because it starts with orange and then blue. And because it alternated, we stay on the same side, but then it does the same, so we swap. And we just have our melees bait near, range bait far, party rests on the boss hitbox, and we just do it opposite this cleave just to give ourselves lots of safe room and minimal adjustment. So in this case, it's near and stay, and they swap again for near, and then we swap sides while the range go out, and then we swap again, range go out again. And that's it. For Pari's Curse, there's a couple different combinations here. One consistent is there's always a stack, a no debuff, and 2 defamations. Sometimes the stack has both fire debuffs, sometimes both defamation have fire debuff. So there's a couple different patterns, and you want to keep in mind basically how many ice safe spots are going to spawn. So if you have this fire debuff, you need to get hit by ice. If you don't want to get hit by ice just to not take extra damage. And so there's always a clone out here that covers half of the arena diagonally. So it can either cover the 4 side or the 2 side. And then it will spawn an ice crystal. And the ice crystal will get covered by rugs. And so it's important to follow this ice crystal as it moves around. And so right here, the boss also spawned 2 red crystals. So you can see that the ice crystal stopped here, and the red crystal is to my right and to my left. And since I'm fire and I'm stack, I want to get hit by ice. And I will take the close ice because we just put the stack middle for simplicity, since 2 people have to go to it. And so, as you can see by the safe spots, there is a safe spot for the no ice near 2. And you can imagine that there is a safe spot by 1 that is covered by ice in the end, but bisected by this clone. So the other defamation can also be here at 1 to get hit by ice, and they just need to make sure to be on the safe half. And here our ninja needed to get hit by ice, but did not. which means that he basically dies to doom, unfortunately. So it's really important that if you are ice, you need to get hit, or if you're fire, you need to get hit by ice, or it's unrecoverable. So for Spurning Flames, it's going to spawn just a bunch of puddles to dodge, and then it will also spawn pairs of lingering fire puddles, and there's also these chains. And so the chains will help you decide who breaks what. In this case, our melees got chained together and our range got chained together. And if we just have decided in previous pulls who goes to which side. And our strategy for this was to place our puddles along a wall. There's a couple options you can do for this. I've seen groups place them along the corner to create like a long diagonal of safe. I think you could also do a line through the middle and then try and have the chains break along other ends of the arena, but I'm not sure if there's room. This strat just worked for us and it was fine. The important thing to note about placing these puddles though is sometimes you have to wait. And so we placed our 4 puddles. You can pretty comfortably fit 4 along the wall, but it doesn't give you a whole lot of safe arena. And so you have to break chains while spreading. My co-healer went to the northwest corner while I went to southeast. But our melees ended up stacking their chains, so they also had issues breaking it. And so this strat tends to constrain your remaining arena for breaking the chain a lot. And then she just does a raid wide for fun. And then for this 2s coming up, you're actually heading into downtime, which is why I'm sitting on my gauge. So there's 2 clones here, and there's 2 clones behind me doing the exact, like it's mirrored. And so the card means that your clone is going off next. So what's important is I see this, my ninja's clone has that cleave. So I know I must have the other cleave. So I turn around and I go back here, because the players with the cards need to soak the towers as close as possible to their clone that doesn't have them cleaving the arena. So I can see on my side of the arena and the other side of the arena that the clone has left an AoE that would cleave a player if they'd soaked any other tower. And then you will do the same where these card players will soak whatever towers are appropriate for them, and the other 2 players need to soak the remaining towers. Unfortunately, it's kind of ambiguous who should soak what, but generally try to aim for having every player move the shortest distance they have to, which is why I have to soak this one rather than the one right next to me. And then this is just a weird mechanic. She drops 3 of these red gems, and then you just have like pair stacks, and there's just 2 safe spots. We're pretty sure this goes, it's like role based, so it'll either go on both DPS or both supports, but as always, use eyes. So for this, she's doing the 4 cleaves again while spawning 4 different gems. What my group did was we split the workload. So our tank called the gem safe spots, whether or not they needed to be east or west, and I called whether or not we needed to move forward or backwards. Because it seems like you can resolve this whole mechanic within these 4 close squares. So I say stay, and he says west. And I say swap, but he still says west. And I say swap and east. So yeah, it's a very difficult mechanic if you're alone, but I think it's very easy if there are just two people calling different things. And then that's pretty much it. I have the Enrage here, so it does the crystals, and then it casts a Heat Burst, and then 1 raid wide, and then that's it. And so this is the soft Enrage, where she'll cast Burning Flames and give herself the Fury buff. And then that's Enrage. And that's everything. Thank you for watching, and let me know if I guess I should, cover anything else. Bye bye.